Today, I will be showing you how to write a Java program consisting of a single class with a main method. The way I'm demonstrating it here, I will give you 8 components to this process, just to break it down and structure and simplify things. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We will start with what I call the class sandwich. Now let's say you have a file entitled classname.java. In this case, your class sandwich will look like this, and it will consist of 6 components. The word public, all lowercase, class, all lowercase, class name, and notice the similarity between the file name and the class name you're using inside the code. They are basically the same, with the exception that the class name inside the code will not include the .java section. Then you have an opening curly brace, skip several lines, and a closing curly brace. And it's very important that you use the curly braces and not the square braces. Inside the class sandwich, we will have the main sandwich. The word public, all lowercase, static, void, main, open paren, string, capitalized, open square bracket, close square bracket, space, args, close paren, open curly brace, skip lines, and close curly brace. And notice that all the components of the main sandwich are nested inside of the class sandwich. Then we will put in some placeholder comments. And the purpose of these placeholder comments is to indicate to us the specific places in the code where we would like to add certain types of other code later. First, we will have the import comment, which is 2 lines above the top of your class sandwich. So you would go up to the very first time you have the word public, press enter twice, and then go up to the very first line and type in // import space period semicolon. Next, within the main sandwich, skipping a line for neatness, your variables comment / variables, and then your program steps comment / program steps. Now we will put in our variable declarations. Go below the variables comment and type in whichever variables that you already know you plan on using. For example, here we have ints I, j, and k, string, str, and scanner, scan. And notice that we are only declaring j and k while we are declaring and initializing I, str, and scan. Now before we continue with this part, you will perhaps see here 3 dots underneath the int declarations. All that's there for is to indicate that there's more code that we are simply not showing so that there's more room on the slide here. But those variable declarations that you saw on the previous slide, in your own mind you should substitute them for the 3 dots here. Now, underneath your program steps comment, you'll want to put in actual other steps of your program other than your variable declarations. Like so. See, we have a print line comment. We're taking in input from the user and assigning that to the variable j, and then we're using that data to calculate another value, casting it to an int because k is an int, and we are assigning that resulting value to k. Next, you'll go back to where you have the import comment. Now, it may be that your program is only using classes that are already accessible to the Java compiler. However, you may be using other classes, such as the scanner class, that have to be explicitly imported. In that case, what you'll do is you'll go to your import comment, and you will remove it and replace it with all the import statements that you need. So you convert your import comment to an actual import statement if you actually need to import anything. Otherwise, you simply remove it. We also want to comment our code in order to make it more readable and understandable, both for other programmers and also for ourselves if we have to go back and revisit it later, so we can remember what we were doing and why we were doing it. For example, you may wish to put some comments at the very top of your class, even above the import statement, in order to describe it. Also, in various places in your code, you might want to put in comments to explain what you're doing right now or why you're doing it. Basically, comments where they would be helpful to you and or other programmers. For example, we're making a comment here pointing out that we're generating a random 7-digit integer for the variable passcode. Finally, what you'll want to do is simply make your code cleaner and neater. For example, you can remove the placeholder comments now, because we're initially putting them there in the first place as a guide. So you could take out your import comment, certainly, as well as the variables comment and the program steps comment, because we don't really need those anymore. We're just doing that, again, as kind of a guide to tell us what to put where. Furthermore, you can skip lines in your code in order to make it easier to understand. Now, obviously, we do not want to skip between every single line, but sometimes there will be certain sets of statements that hang together and are related conceptually. For example, the three statements we have here, system.out.println, enter an int, j equals scan.nextInt, and k equals math.pow I to the jth power, all those things go together because they're all related to one another. But once we move on to the next part of the program where we're generating a passcode, that's probably conceptually separate, so we might want to skip a line in order to indicate that conceptual separation in a visual manner. And finally, we want to indent our code properly. Notice that our class sandwich is more or less flush with the left side of your screen. The main sandwich is about 2 spaces to the right of that. And then the actual code inside the main sandwich is further indented. It just makes things easier to understand. Also notice how up here we skip a line between the import statement and the top of the class sandwich, and then between the top of the class sandwich and the top of the main sandwich, and then down at the very bottom, once the code ends, we skip a line before the first closing curly brace, and then we can actually skip another line before the next closing curly brace if we want to. And now that we have done this, I will show you how it works in practice. We're going to create a class called ChangeMaker. So starting off, we create our class sandwich. Public class ChangeMaker, and it's all one word with the words within capitalized in order to correspond with the file name. Open curly brace. Skip some lines. close curly brace. Next, we will want our main sandwich. Public, static, void, main, string, open and close square brackets, args, close paren, open curly brace, skip lines, close curly brace. And actually, we can delete a few lines here because we don't need quite that much white space. And next, we will add our placeholder comments. Go all the way to the very start of the program, right here. Skip a couple lines, go to the very first line and type in // import space semicolon, and that way it's there if we need it. Now we'll make our variables comment. And our program steps comment. And while doing all of this, you probably want to be saving regularly. And notice here we have kind of a bare bones skeleton of a program. I mean, right now, if we want to, we can in fact compile the program and run it. As you can see, it simply won't do anything, but it did in fact compile. Now we want to declare some variables. And the purpose of this program is to take in input from the user representing an amount consisting of dollars and cents and translate that into a certain number of 20s, 10s, 5s, 1s, quarters, dimes, nickels, and pennies. So first of all, we'll simply declare those variables directly. 20s, 10s, 5s, 1s, quarters, dimes, nickels, pennies. In addition, because we're taking in a monetary amount, we also want to have a double variable. And because we need to take in user input, we will want a scanner. And if we figure out that we need more variables later, we can always go back up to this section and add them. Next, we will want to put in our program steps. Then we take in the value as a double value and assign it to amount. And next, there will come a point in the program where we need to multiply this amount by 100 and assign it to an int variable. So here's what we will do. Go back up here to the variable section, add an int. Amount times 100. Indeed, here we do that calculation. And now that we have this information here, we can move along to actually calculate all these values up here. And to expedite this process, we're going to just do some quick conversions here. Just now line them up. So obviously, to know the number of 20s, because we're multiplying the amount times 100, you can think of it as the number of pennies, essentially. So to get the number of 20s, we will say amount divided by 2,000. Oh, excuse me, that should be amount times 100 divided by 2,000. Just a moment. Then for tens, now that we have the number of 20s here, what we'll need to do is use the modulo operator to get the leftover. And now from the leftover, we will get to 10, number of tens, amount times 100 divided by 1,000. Get the leftover, 500. Get the leftover, 25. 10. 5. And actually, we don't have to do any more division because we're done. And now we can print out the results to the user. Put them all in there and do some quick substitution. Dimes. Pennies. And there we have it. Now, even though we're just demonstrating how to write a program here, let's compile it and see if it runs. Oh my, it doesn't look like it's running. That could be a problem. But that leads us to step 6, the imports. And this is what we do. We go throughout our entire program and we just look through a code and see if there are any classes that need to be imported. As you can see here, we do need to import the scanner class. So we go up here and we change the import comment to an actual statement, java.util.scanner. Save, compile, run. Now let's test it out. $97.97. Oh, and look at that. 4 20s, 110, 15, couple of ones, 3 quarters, couple of dimes, no nickels, and 2 pennies. It works. And now what we can do is we can go into the program and put some comments in various places. I'm just going to take some comments here that I've already written. So we put a comment at the top describing the class and what it does. And then if we want to, we can put some in here. Get values. Calculate denominations. Print results. And finally, we have the clean and neaten stage. And notice we don't have to do anything with the import comment because we already converted it to an actual import statement. But we don't need variables anymore. The variables comment rather, and we don't need the program steps comment either. And finally, we can go down here at the end and we can kind of get rid of any extraneous returns or blank lines. And there we have it. Here's the program looking pretty neat. Import statement, skip a line, top of the class sandwich, top of the main sandwich, variable declarations, program statements, close curly brace of the main sandwich. In fact, you can put a comment here as well. In main. And finally, down here at the very bottom, we have the closing brace of the class sandwich. And we can say end changemaker. And there you have it. That's how to put together, one way rather, of putting together a Java program step by step. Thank you.